According to an applied behavioral analysis report cited in the Wall Street Journal, WSJ, when the human brain has to process 3 or more events directly threatening physical safety simultaneously, a primal survival mechanism is triggered. The prefrontal cortex, the central area responsible for logical thinking, long-term planning, and financial data analysis, automatically shuts down. Instead, the amygdala takes over, forcing the entire nervous system into a fight or flight state. And ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly the invisible biological weapon being fully exploited on a global scale right now. Welcome to PrismNews, where we don't just read the news, we decode the flow of power and money hidden behind geopolitical smokescreens. Today, we are going to uncover a perfect manipulation script currently in rehearsal. Let's look at the big picture of the past 24 hours with absolute calmness. Millions of people were swept into sheer panic, witnessing flames shooting from the left engine of a Delta commercial flight right at takeoff in Atlanta. At the same time, a severe security incident on a Frontier Airlines flight, featuring a bomb threat from an unruly passenger, pushed anxiety to its peak. Interspersed are relentless reports of school security instability, including a shooting targeting a teacher. And on an international scale, a strategic attack aimed directly at a U.S. radar system in the Middle East resulted in 15 casualties among service members, sparking the emergency deployment of 50,000 troops. Your eyes are glued to the screen, your heart rate spikes. But did you know that right while 80% of public attention is locked onto these aviation incidents and conflicts, a massive wealth transfer is taking place in the shadows? This relentless bombardment of information creates a colossal financial blind spot. Wall Street elites call this vigilance fatigue, when you are too busy worrying about whether your flight tomorrow will be safe. You have no energy left to realize that the core financial structure of the nation is severely fracturing. So, what is truly being hidden behind this chaotic velvet curtain? A systemic risk event is eating away at the very roots of the economy, and PrismNews will unveil it right now. But first, ask yourself, when was the last time you checked the safety of your bank account while you were engrossed in news about engine fires? If there is a precise metric for the absurdity of current macroeconomic policies, it is how our tax dollars are being allocated across different fronts. Data from the Treasury Department and independent reports by Bloomberg expose a bitter paradox. An empire can instantly mobilize billions of dollars to maintain and deploy 50,000 military personnel and thousands of state-of-the-art interceptors to distant front lines, yet leaves its homeland security forces in a state of exhaustion. We are talking about the disruption in government funding, where the first paychecks for Transportation Security Administration, TSA agents, are only just beginning to trickle in slowly after days of fatigue, and millions traveling for spring break are facing an overburdened infrastructure. Mass media tells you the only consequence of this is long, winding lines at the airport, but that is just the tip of the iceberg. The real fatal flaw lies not at the baggage screening gates, but within critical agencies like CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. During periods of tightened or stalled budgets, top cybersecurity experts, the very people directly guarding the national power grid, telecommunications systems, and most importantly, the interbank clearing systems are forced to work under-resourced or face temporary furloughs. What do you think happens when the gatekeepers protecting trillions of dollars in digital assets are stripped of their own financial stability? This is not simply a political bargaining game between factions in Washington. This is a structural security vulnerability. In the modern digital financial world, a nation doesn't collapse from a lack of bullets. It collapses when a clearinghouse like Fedwire halts for just 24 hours. Major hedge funds know this perfectly well. They are quietly repricing the risk of the entire U.S. infrastructure system. The fragility of homeland defense creates a magnificent loophole for financial powers to manipulate the market. Is it merely a coincidence that these internal instabilities erupt exactly when the global geopolitical chessboard is as tense as a piano wire? And more importantly, who benefits most when the flow of global trade is choked? We will find the answer in the energy hotspot in the very next segment. Let's look deep into the nature of the media circus with PrismNews. The number one rule of attention manipulation is, look at my right hand while my left hand performs the trick. The current situation is a textbook example of this doctrine. The latest macroeconomic analysis, reports from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, are sounding blazing red alarms. Tensions at strategic maritime trade choke points and the presence of 50,000 troops are completely reshaping the global logistics supply chain. Ocean freight costs and cargo insurance premiums in risk zones are being pushed to unprecedented historical highs. The energy market is witnessing massive aftershocks as supply chain ruptures constantly threaten the stability of crude oil prices. Yet, Instead of deeply analyzing how expensive energy costs will devastate manufacturing profit margins and erode consumer purchasing power, the news broadcasts solely focus on exploiting surface-level fears. Fear of flying, fear of school violence, fear of distant conflicts. Why is there such a terrifying information asymmetry? The answer lies in the concept of the shadow inflation tax. When energy prices soar due to geopolitical risks, it doesn't stop at you paying more to fill up your gas tank. That cost seeps into every bunch of vegetables in the supermarket, every pill you take, every brick used to build a house. It is the most ruthless regressive tax, striking directly at the wallets of the middle and working classes without requiring a single legislative vote to pass. By maintaining a state of continuous social tension, from invisible security fears to deep political divides, the system is forcing the audience to accept inflation as an inevitability of the times, a necessary sacrifice for national security, rather than the consequence of poor macroeconomic management. Ladies and gentlemen, which political side are you leaning towards in this crisis? Actually, to the market makers, that doesn't matter at all. No matter which side you support, your wallet is being eroded at the exact same constant rate. Crisis is always the perfect screen to legitimize the impoverishment of the masses. But wait, if the masses are being systematically impoverished, where is that colossal wealth evaporating to? The secret behind the smart money predatory strategy will be stripped bare in the next block. Do not take your eyes off the screen. While 90% of retail investors are frozen by vigilance fatigue, paralyzed by fear and disorientation in the face of relentless news, the 10% elite, the group known as smart money, is busier than ever. At PrismNews, we closely monitor capital rotation data from the Federal Reserve, FED, and independent analytical bodies. The numbers do not lie. Whenever the panic index, VIX, spikes due to geopolitical news or internal gridlock, we always witness a cyclical transfer of wealth from weak, fearful hands into firm, cold ones. The operating mechanism of this cash flow is incredibly ruthless, but follows perfect mathematical logic. When news of tens of thousands of deployed troops and the risk of security instability breaks, mob mentality automatically compels people to sell off investment assets and hoard cash in search of a false sense of security. But cash, as we analyzed regarding shadow inflation, is evaporating in value by the minute. Meanwhile, hedge funds and megacorporations are utilizing this exact cognitive void of the public to accumulate real assets at discount prices. They aim directly at industrial real estate, strategic warehousing infrastructure, shares in core energy companies, and tech conglomerates holding digital infrastructure. They are using the very fiat currency that is rapidly depreciating to exchange for assets capable of automatically adjusting their prices with inflation. To them, supply chain bottlenecks, delays in paying security personnel, or panic at airports are not risks. On the contrary, these are excellent catalysts for repricing the market. Do you realize which link you occupy in this fierce financial food chain? Recognizing that you are being manipulated by the flow of negative information is the first breakthrough step to regaining control of your assets. And to do that, we cannot rely solely on reason. We need to look at a miraculous medical science phenomenon regarding the human brain's recovery. By now, many PrismNews viewers might feel suffocated by the cruelty and coldness of the global economic machine. But ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of exposing the truth is not to sow despair. Crisis always comes with opportunity, and we are here to provide you with a sword of wisdom. Amidst the broadcast flooded with the gloom of broken airplanes, security threats, and conflicts, there is a blinding bright spot of human resilience that very few media channels bother to pause and analyze deeply. The miraculous recovery journey of professional golfer Gary Woodland. Viewed through the lens of macroeconomics and behavioral science, Woodland is not just an outstanding athlete. He is the most vivid embodiment of the scientific concept of neuroplasticity, the only biological key to helping us survive and thrive in this era of chaos. Gary Woodland had to undergo a highly complex medical surgery to remove a brain tumor, followed by excruciatingly severe post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Physiologically, his nervous system was heavily devastated and constantly emitting false alarm signals, exactly like how social psychology is being bombarded by the media with negative news every day. But through extraordinary disciplined strength, intense redirection of focus, and a refusal to surrender to invisible fears, Woodland forced his brain to establish new neural connections, returned to the professional arena, and won. Neuroscience has proven a great truth. You cannot control what the outside world throws at you, be it inflation, war, or market shocks, but you have the absolute ability to restructure your neural network to change how you react to them. In investment and personal financial management, this principle is the compass. If you keep letting your amygdala be agitated by every sensational headline, you will forever be caught in the loop of buying at the peak of euphoria and panic selling at the bottom. The composure of a seasoned investor is not innate. It is a deliberately forged neurological skill, bravely disconnecting from noisy information streams, focusing on analyzing core macro metrics, and building a long-term strategic vision is exactly how you perform brain surgery on your own financial mindset. The choice is entirely in your hands. But be ready, because the macro game does not stop at psychology. A more massive power is preparing to launch a decisive move to manipulate global liquidity. We have thoroughly dissected mob psychology and the acquisition strategies of professional investment funds. But the macro picture at PrismNews would never be complete if we ignored the true invisible hand holding the copyright to dominate this entire landscape, the central banks. When geopolitical pressure escalates to unprecedented levels, dragging along soaring demands for defense spending to maintain military power, like sustaining 50,000 troops at a hotspot, combined with internal administrative hurdles causing budget flows to stall, the government is pushed into an academic corner known as the liquidity trap. According to profound historical data analysis from the WSJ and independent economists, in extreme and dilemmatic circumstances like the present, monetary policymakers usually have only one strategic way out. That is, they must quietly maintain special liquidity injection channels into the financial system to fund massive budget deficits, despite the fact that in the headlines, they continue to tout strict monetary tightening policies to control inflation. This is considered one of the greatest smokescreens in modern financial history. By employing complex tools like yield curve control or off-balance sheet repo facilities, they ensure the government always has enough financial resources to operate the military machine and maintain the surface stability of the banking system. But what is the physical consequence of these actions? The purchasing power of the fiat currency in the hands of the people will continue to be diluted in a ruthless, continuous, and invisible manner. The fluctuations from distant radar bases or emergency security decisions in the capital are not simply news events to watch for information. They are the invisible hand reaching directly into your retirement savings account every time you pay a grocery bill. So, facing a system designed to erode the wealth of the majority, what is the practical combat solution for PrismNews audience? We do not believe in sitting around complaining about an unfair economic structure or waiting for salvation from policymakers. We believe in action based on a solid foundation of knowledge. Surrounded by cognitive overload and deliberately concealed trillion-dollar vulnerabilities, the best defensive strategy right now is to build an antifragile financial ecosystem, a highly famous concept developed by philosopher and fund manager Nassim Taleb. The first and most important rule: absolutely do not let your idle capital rot in standard bank accounts under the guise of false safety. In an era where fiat currency is being weaponized and inflation has become an invisible, borderless tax collection tool, holding cash long-term is the investment strategy with the highest destructive risk. Learn to think and allocate capital exactly like smart money. You need to shift your focus to asset classes, possessing independent intrinsic value, things that no government or central bank can arbitrarily print out of thin air. Real estate capable of generating actual rental cash flow, essential commodities and core raw materials, precious metals considered the hard currency of history, and especially shares of corporations currently monopolizing the bottlenecks of the global supply chain. But more important than all tangible assets, the investment that yields the highest return rate is investing in human capital, upgrading professional skills, cultivating sharp intellect, and forging the resilience of the nervous system. Like the recovery example of Gary Woodland, when your metal is forged through the heat of crisis, you will no longer panic and run away when the market shakes violently. Instead, you will see through it as a wealth transfer opportunity that only appears once a decade. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, what we are constantly forced to witness on the television news broadcasts every evening is not the random bad luck of a volatile era. Commercial flights suddenly encountering issues, cracks in the homeland security system due to budget disruptions, or the sounds of bombs and bullets echoing from the Middle East, prompting the deployment of 50,000 US troops, all are unintentionally, or quite possibly intentionally, creating a perfect psychological smokescreen called vigilance fatigue, a fog dense enough to hide the tragic truth that the core financial structure is being drained of liquidity, and the wealth gap in society is being pushed to a height never before seen in human history. However, by following PrismNews, you do not necessarily have to accept the fate of being a victim of this ruthless macro machine. By deeply understanding the complex interaction between politics, neuropsychology, military strategy, and global capital flows, you have officially stepped one foot out of the manipulated information matrix. Your ultimate mission from this moment forward is protect your attention as you would protect your own life. Strictly maintain your mental health. and use an ice-cold head to navigate your assets through the storm. Thank you for taking the time to join us in today's in-depth macro analysis broadcast. From a personal perspective, what do you think about a nation being able to rapidly prioritize spending for distant conflicts, yet leaving its domestic cybersecurity infrastructure facing the risk of budget shortfalls? Leave your analysis and critical perspectives in the comments section below. And don't forget to hit subscribe to continuously update the sharpest economic dissections from Prism News. Goodbye. And see you when the next secret curtain of the financial world is lifted.